come in and speak to talk about our school district. So this year, let's see. I thought I shut it off. Okay. So I'll go through some of these slides quickly because you all know who you are.
You spelled my name wrong.
Did I?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, man. And we all know who I am? So we'll skip through those real quick. As a reminder, the board goals are that the performance and opportunity gap will be eliminated and all students will graduate college and career ready. We will recruit, hire, retain, and develop faculty, staff, and leaders that are qualified, high-performing, diverse, and culturally competent. All students will be engaged in learning environments that are safe, caring, and healthy. And we will align resources, and those are defined as materials, actions, and personnel, towards a focus on student achievement while maintaining a 4% budget reserve. My expectation is haven't changed much over the years. We did make a few adjustments here and there, but ultimately learning is the focus of all of our efforts. Learning, and not just student learning, but adult learning as well. We'll be forward-thinking, planning, and acting with a can-do attitude. We'll foster the mindset of students towards believing in their future. We'll align policies and procedures to the district vision of performance at an exemplary level. We will collaboratively develop, purposefully communicate goals aimed at continuous improvement. We'll create a justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion framework, and we'll develop as a school district. So I'm not going to read every line through every slide, but I do think there are some very important things I need to point out. This is our district facts. We all know what our schools are. In terms of our demographics, so I've had this question quite a bit from many of you on the board, as well as members of our community. What is our current demographic look for our district? So you can see how many students we have in our current enrollment and what the percentage of the total population of students is by each of the categories. I will tell you that the category for 2 or more races means that a student selected those when they filled out their paperwork. They may have selected more than one. They also could have selected the box for 2 or more. So, for instance, if a student is an African-American student and they are also Filipino, they could have marked both African-American, and then as a secondary, they could have noted Filipino. Or they could have only selected 2 or more races. So these numbers are fairly accurate, but when we also dig deeper, we want to make sure we look at and identifying every student that could potentially fit one of these areas. Ultimately, you can see the percentage of our population. Currently, our population, a majority is Hispanic and Latino students. I think it's also important to point out the vulnerable populations as we look at this data as well, right? So when we look at our demographics compared to our county, you can see some of the differences. So we're about almost 10% higher in terms of Latino Hispanic students. And in the other areas, we're fairly about the same amount of percentage, with the exception of white students in our district are about half of what the county's percentage is. When we look at some additional facts, our current enrollment is 16,337 students. Of that, 25% of our students are only speak English at home. So each time a student enrolls, they fill out a form. It says what language do you speak at home. So only 25.4% of our students speak only English at home. 1.4% of our students, when they come in, they mark that they speak Spanish or Tagalog or another language at home, but then they test as fluent on their initial test.
So these numbers, the initially fluent is the ones that are fully bilingual, I guess you would say, English and Spanish?
They would be fluent in English when they tested their first time,
Okay.
but had another language at home other than English. And then our English learner population is 21.3% of our students, and then redesignated, these are students who were English learners who have met the criteria to be reclassified or redesignated, so almost half of our students have redesignated. So if you combine, Trustee Rubin and I have talked about this before, and I know Mr. Garcia talks about it as well, is if you combine the last 2 bars on the graph, that would demonstrate, 72% of our students truly are still English learners. So when you compare that to what the state looks like, so for English-only students, the blue bar is our district, the middle or gold bar is the county, and the green is the state. So in the state of California, 60% of the students are considered English-only speakers. But in our district, we are, what, 1/3 of that, right? Or something like that, I don't know. Give me one of the math guys can figure that. Okay. Almost a half. So you can see the kind of demographic we have in our school district. Initially fluent, 1.4% of our students compared to the county in this state. You can see that number. When you look at English learners, so the state of California, 19% of the students are English learners. You can see we're above that mark. But in our county, you can see how high the English learner population is in our county. And then redesignated, this is a win for our school district. So when you look at success measurements, the percentage of students we redesignate is significantly higher than the county in the state. Some additional facts, less than 1% of our students are considered homeless. Foster youth. 2.2% are considered homeless. 4.7% of our students are migrant education. 11.5% of our students are students with disabilities. And almost 92% of our students are low income.
That's crazy.
So that's a significant number. If you just walked out in the community and asked somebody in the community, how many students do you think are students living below the poverty line or as a low-income student in our district? I don't think anybody would tell you that 9 out of 10 kids, but that's our current demographic.
Wow.
Our student subgroups, when you look at them a little bit more and compare them to the county, so the significant piece comes in when you look at homeless students. So our two main elementary districts, Salinas City and Alisal Elementary, both identify far more students that are homeless than we do, which is why you see the difference between the blue and the gold in that chart. But we're pretty much comparable with the state of California. Migrant education, you can see we are significantly higher when you compare it to the state. And then students with disabilities were fairly comparable, but with low-income students, you can see we're far higher than the average in the county and the state. So taking that into consideration, that just demonstrates some challenges. This is what our graduation rates look like from last school year. So the cohort means that the students all started as 9th graders and finished 4 years later on time. Now you have to keep into consideration too, in our district, we also allow some of our students who arrive late as newcomers in English language development to stay another year to complete it. That's not necessarily part of this data. But you can see at Alisal High School, the grad rate last year was 89.2, El Puente was 42%, et cetera. So you can go all the way down the list, and then you can also compare with the county and the state of California. So our graduation rates are in line with the county and the state of California. And when the state takes into consideration all of our data, though, they also do an average of all of our schools. So you can see that the challenge is our students in alternative education are actually graduating at lower rates, which is why they're probably in these programs to begin with, right? So, but we've had some increase there over the past couple years. Excuse me. You can also see the graduates meeting UC and CSU requirements by school. You can see that percentage compared to the state of California and to the county. You can see the number of graduates earning the seal of biliteracy. So at our comprehensive schools, 3 out of 5 of them average 20% of the students earning a seal of biliteracy, which means they have to demonstrate on a test that they are fluent in 2 or more languages. And then I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, and what do we do to support those? Only because my daughter's going into junior high next year, and she's done the whole dual immersion starting, from kindergarten. So what, we can talk about that later.
Yeah, but there's a process for students to come in and do the assessment.
Okay.
And once they've completed the assessment, then they are entitled to receiving a seal on their diploma. Same thing with graduates earning the Golden State Merit Diploma. So you can see our students are doing fairly well with earning their merit diplomas as well. When we look at A to G completion, so this is an area that I think that we all have some attention on in terms of looking at what does it take for a student to meet the A to G requirements. In our district, if a student just takes all of the graduation requirements and earns a C or better in all of those classes, they will meet A to G. So where students get off track is when they get a D or an F in a class, it takes them offline. They also get taken offline if they're an English language development student and they have to take courses that are not necessarily A to G compliant. So about half of our kids are meeting that. That's an increase over the past year or two. About 1/3 of our students are completing a pathway in career technical education. Our state seal of biliteracy increased by 60 from last year to now 414 students. These are just the graduates. So don't look at it and say, well, there's 11,000 high school kids. No, these are just the graduates. AP exams, students that passed 2 or more last year were about 235. Again, the Golden State Merit Seals are 646. It increased by 290 from the previous year. So sometimes we want to look at that and pat ourselves on the back that we did a great thing, and we should celebrate and recognize. At the same time, we know that things come and go in cycles with students. So next year, the Merit Seal could be 290 less, right? Just depends on the number of students that complete the requirements and also apply. And then civic engagement seals, those are new. The board approved the process a year and a half or 2 ago, and this will be increasing over the next few years. So we look at students that graduated last year, class of 22. These are some of the places they enrolled. They actually enrolled in for college. So we had 139 attend the University of California. That could be one of any of their schools, from UC San Diego all the way up to UC Merced, right? The California State University System, 279 of the graduates enrolled. 1,103 enrolled in one of the community colleges. 12 enrolled in a private 2 or 4 year university in California. 12 enrolled out of state at a 2-year college, and 40 out of state at a 4-year college. Some of those out of states or in states include Harvard, Yale, University of Penn, Columbia, Stanford, and many other highly renowned universities. So our students are having that opportunity to go to college. Of our graduates, on a rolling average of the last 3 years, 69%, so almost 7 out of 10 students that graduate go directly into college. So that's a significant accomplishment for the work that we have to do over a 6-year period of time of closing some of their gaps. Of those students who enroll, 78% stay in college for a second year, which is a really good rate as well. So to give you a little more perspective, though, this is some of the data that Trustee Rubio had asked for previously that we have shared with the board. This is just perspective. The average student from the class of 22 that just graduated last year, when they enrolled as a 7th grader with us, so it's 6 years prior to them graduating, they were 35% of them only met the standard for English coming in the door. They were 3 to 4 years below the 7th grade equivalent in reading, and 70% were below standard in math. So walking in the door, that's the challenge that we face for 7th graders, and then you can see the kind of gap we close over time based on the number of students going to college. Last year's graduating class, from all of that resiliency and work we've done over the 6-year period of time, earned over $73 million in scholarships, which was phenomenal considering the year before was $38 million.
Wow.
And so that's amazing work by our students, our counselors, our teachers, all of our staff, in making sure kids have the opportunity in front of them to say, I'm going to go to college or not, and if I go, I might have a way to pay for it.
And I don't know if you've told the new trustees, or maybe you did, about the increase in counselors and how that helped us. How that helped us increase this, because maybe the ratio was too big, I don't know. But the point is, I remember we added more counselors, and so I don't know if you want to share.
Absolutely. So we've used money out of the supplemental budget of the LCAP to reduce the counselor caseloads from I believe at one point it was 500, then it was 450. I think we're looking next year with additional dollars to be down to close to 300 to 1, which is pretty unheard of in a high school district. So that does a lot, right, with promoting relationship building between the counselors and the students, and allowing them to loop with students over time to really get them not just to the finish line, but to actually promote more of applying for colleges. So in addition to that, we are working with a state agency to potentially be a pilot district for an artificial intelligence bot that will remind students, don't forget to fill out your FAFSA, don't forget to submit your applications, things like that. So that may be coming down the road.
And let me just say this, you might think about when, the budget, the dollars, I know we stretch the heck out of them all over the place, but this had a lot of impact, a lot with the counselors, huge impact, and just something to consider when we start, fighting for the money, there's no other word, right? We're pulling it from one way to another, but that's all.
So some of the highlights, so 200 students received over $60,000 in scholarship offers last year, 165 over 100,000 in offers, 57 over 300,000, 25 over 500,000, et cetera. So you can see 6 of our kids earned or were offered over $1 million in scholarship offers, with the top person last year being offered $3.2 million in scholarships. So these are some of the highlight students, with the young person at Alvarez earning the top amount previously. So big shoes to fill, Danielle. You got it, though. I know you got it. So going to some more data for our district. So we have roughly about 800 classified positions in the district, 900 certificated. I believe those amounts, these are plus or minus 40 or 50. Our management staff's about 65. That's only plus or minus maybe 3. Our annual budget is about $270 million. I believe now with all of the additional grants, one-time grants, what you saw in the second interim it's about $340 million now. We have a positive certification rating by MCOE for our budgets. We utilize performance-based budgeting to continue to maintain solvency. Our bond projects that are in the works, there's over $100 million in planning. And this is a figure that sometimes people don't understand. We have $19.2 billion in assets as a district. We are rated extremely high as a district in terms of our credit rating by Moody's. So we're rated a AA2 for bond issuing and an A1 for borrowing. That credit rating may or not fluctuate now that we have this $12 million loan out there for the apartments, but I think it will still be high. Just planning for some capacity. So obviously I talked about the employee housing. That's something that came to us through some visioning and planning, and it's going to be an amazing opportunity for us to support staff that need that support. It will also be a proof of concept, I believe, locally. Others will be looking at how do you do the same kind of thing, and so it'll be good to be somebody out front in that area. Mm-hmm. In terms of building coherence, what you have in the CCE reports that we had the study session we went over, one of the big things that points out is needing to build coherence, right? Bringing systems together and really having focus. And the focus is really that's being defined is that all of our students need to be college and career ready. Not college or career, but college and career ready. That we have exemplary instruction in all of our classes. We're fiscally solvent, but we're strategically aligning resources, like President Rubio just said, with reducing counselor loads. That's a strategic way to align resources, and that we create inclusive learning environments for our students and staff. Some of the signature programs, you hear them in the presentations from the students. You hear them in some of the presentations through LCAP, but we have model school programs in AVID. The Point Day Project is at 2 of our schools, and it may expand further. We have the Naval Cadet Program, which Master Chief is excited because he recruited over 60 students potential freshmen to get his program moving forward. We have small learning community models at our schools, which are based on house structures or schools within schools, because kids need to find a way to relate or connect while they're on campus, and some of our campuses are really large. So the small learning community concepts help with that. We have engineering programs, construction technology, we have computer science and robotics, we have sports medicine, we have physical therapy programs. Our career tech ed pathways also include job shadowing for students, internships and externships. We have over 100 years of serving adults in our community through our adult ed program. Our schools for athletics can offer up to 21 sports at their sites. We have ethnic studies for all students. And we have dual enrollment offerings currently in place for our high school students with Hartnell and MPC, which we've had for a couple years now. So those are signature programs. Continuing with that, we have professional learning community models at our schools. The school board received an award 4 or 5 years ago, a Golden Bell Award for instructional coaching through the California School Board Association. Mount Toro High School has continued to be a model distinguished school, so each year they have to be reevaluated, and they've continued to maintain that status. You heard from Skills USA students today. For AP exams, we have paid the fees for kids so that they don't have to worry about that as a detriment to them or deterrent to them being able to take the course, the AP exams. We have free meals for all of our students. We've talked about wellness centers tonight with behavior clinicians and social workers at schools. At our career tech ed program, over 6,000 students are enrolled annually. There's 34 CTE pathway programs. There's 13 different industry sectors that those programs fall under. 98% of the courses in our CTE model are approved for students to gain UC and CSU. It's approved through their system. 42% of the students complete a full pathway, which means they've completed 360 hours of training.
Wow.
And 13% continue on afterwards to earn an industry certificate. We have 7 California Partnership Academies as well, which is kind of a school within a school model, if you would, which is focused on one of these industry sectors. Some additional accomplishments: we continue to build the narrative with the great work that our staff does and the accomplishments of our students. We communicated consistently with updates to the board, staff, parents, and the media. I also spend time in local service groups, sharing the messages about what we do in our district. We've launched forward this year with building the DEI framework. It's now JEDI framework. We are adjusting recruitment and hiring efforts to fill vacancies. I've appreciated HR doing pop-up events and trying to get the message out that we're hiring all the time. We've hired 2 Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion coordinators, which you heard from at the last meeting. We're near completion of phase 2 of Rancho San Juan, and we're opening the workforce housing for our staff. Some of our challenges is the increasing need for mental health support, which we've heard a lot about. The escalating cost of living in Salinas. So 50 apartment units is great for our staff. However, that's a drop in the bucket of what the need really is for supporting our staff. We also are dealing with challenges with bias, racism, and divisiveness. There are food and housing insecurities throughout our community. We have a lot of new faces in new places, and so the speed of change is a challenge because there's a lot of institutional knowledge that new people may or may not have, but there's also, when you're in a new role, it takes a little bit of time to get acclimated and get your feet under you. So speed of change will be a challenge because we know if we go too fast, people will push back and rebel. And if you go too slow, nobody will ever get on the train with you. So, and then we know reading and literacy levels, as I explained, what walks through the door in 7th grade are a challenge for the district. So I'm going to further with that piece, just that spotlight. So 26% of our current students enter middle school reading below the 4th grade, and 50% enter below the 5th grade. So half of our kids are reading 2 years below 7th grade when they walk in the door. 13.6% enter high school below the 4th grade, which is a challenge, even more difficult than when they walk in 7th grade. And 28% enter reading below the 5th grade. We also have approximately 300 newcomers every year, which means they are new to the states, they are new to our district, and they are first-time English learners. And so if you project that over 6 years that we have students, you can see that's a lot of students over time. So we also have 88% of our students are Black, Indigenous people of color. 61% spoke another language other than English first, which is the second highest in the nation. For a community like ours, 13% of our students, or county students, are considered homeless. So those are additional challenges. So we're going to continue, though, to visualize like a champion. We are remodeling and modernizing our high schools, as you know. We're going to continue to look at how do we expand our CTE programs. How do we build community collaboration? Next year, we'll be launching into the idea of middle school innovation. And we're going to continue along the path of planning out for a community school program here in the district, and also continue our work with building the framework for justice, equity, diversion, and inclusion. So I believe that's the last slide.
I thought you said you were gonna read it all.
Yeah, line by line. Any questions?
I didn't go line by line.